What's up, guys? So it is that time of the year where I do a review of all of the new music that I picked up. I can't see there being any more new music that I'm going to feel the need to pick up for the remainder of this year. So I'm going to go ahead and do it now. I will be doing it in at least two parts. This first one will be focusing on the studio albums. I'll do a separate video for all of like the kind of more oddball releases, live albums, EPs, soundtracks, compilations, etc., etc. I'm considering doing a third part. If you're watching, you can let me know if you're interested in this. Just kind of highlighting all of the older back catalog sort of releases that weren't released this year, but like mainly just highlighting the ones that like made a really big impact on me, like the ones I'd rank like 4 out of 5 or higher, those type of albums. Let me know if you're interested in that. So yeah, let's get into the studio albums. These are ranked, so more or less ranked. I'll kind of let you know when they can interchange. This is kind of how I'm feeling in the moment right now. So this holds a pretty steady place at the bottom of this ranking, but overall this was a really great year for music. Even like the lower ranked music, I'd say on your average year would be kind of more mid ranking. But yeah, solidly at the bottom this year is Fake Names Expendables. This is the only album that I got only on CD. I did that with their previous album too. I got on CD. I never bothered to get on vinyl, as I always do. I like to show the packaging in addition to telling you about the music. But yeah, this is a super group featuring Dennis Lyxzén of Refused and a bunch of other bands. It was a very busy year for Dennis Lyxzén. Multiple projects of his put out albums. Also has Brian Baker, Michael Hampton, Brendan Canty. I know he's from Fugazi and Johnny Temple. I think one of those guys are from Bad Religion, and one of them is from Embrace, the old Ian MacKaye band. I can't really remember where everybody else was from. But yeah, this is a pretty straightforward kind of, rock, kind of vintagey, kind of a little bit more on the hard rock side. This is more or less equal with their first album, but definitely different, I would say. This one, it's a little bit more fun, but at the same time, I'd say it's a little bit cheesy. I mean, it's got some pretty cheesy hooks on it, I'm not going to lie. But, I mean, it's a good, fun album. I mean, not much to really overthink about it. Just good, fun music. All right, so moving on. These next three are pretty close to being more or less equal. Like I said, this is kind of how I'm feeling in the moment. But latest from Sigur Rós, we got Ata. I have a very limited knowledge of Icelandic language. The main thing that got me frustrated while I was trying to learn it was trying to master the accent. I mean, that's something I'm just very self-conscious about in general with languages, because I think other languages actually are pretty cool. It's a lot cooler when somebody who doesn't have a very bland English or American accent tries to speak them. But yeah, all that aside, yeah. Ata, whatever, however it's pronounced by Sigur Rós. So, like I said, fairly flexible about its ranking. I'm not entirely sure how I'd rank it in comparison to all the rest of their albums just yet. I would say probably on the lower end. This is honestly a pretty solid album. Pretty interesting, more ambient sound to it. As I understand, it's actually mostly orchestral, but it's also very production heavy. So it doesn't really sound particularly orchestral. I'd really like to see some sort of in-depth documentary on the making of this album. I think that would be really interesting. That said, it does kind of give me a incomplete vibe to it. I kind of feel like there's maybe more to it that should have been there. Like I said, the guitar is not particularly obvious on this. I would kind of like to have more guitar on it. very minimalist drums on it as well, and I think it can kind of live with minimalist drums of steel. I mean, either way you look at this does kind of give me incomplete vibes. It also reminds me a lot of Valtari, which is also happens to be my favorite Sigur Rós album, and it's not really a very favorable comparison. You know, to me, it's probably always going to come across as kind of like a weaker version of Valtari. So yeah, I mean, if Valtari wasn't released, I'd probably have a significantly more higher opinion of this. But yeah, overall, pretty cool. Next, the most mainstream release that I'm going to be talking about is latest from Foo Fighters, but here we are. Definitely some of Foo Fighters' strongest lyrics. This was largely inspired by the deaths of their drummer Taylor Hawkins, as well as Dave Grohl's mother. But Foo Fighters is a band that you kind of know what to expect. There's very faint lyrics on here. There's also some very minimalist line artwork. But yeah, Foo Fighters is a band you kind of more or less know what to expect when they put out a new album. They're a very formulaic band, but they're also a band that I feel like has mastered their formula. Something that I say about Foo Fighters a lot is they do the same thing that all the other rock bands do. They just do it better than them. I mean, overall, pretty solid album. There's a few songs. I mean, they do kind of stray a little bit from their formula fairly regularly. It's just kind of a matter of how successful they do it. And yeah, the songs on this that I kind of feel stray from their formula do it pretty well. Like Show Me How, a lot of people have said is kind of Foo Fighters' version of shoegaze. I wouldn't go into the song, expecting, My Bloody Valentine or anything, but, it is kind of a little bit more atmospheric for them. The main standout song on this, though, that's going to, really fucking blow your mind, though, is The Teacher, which is, I think it's, 10 minutes long. Gives off a lot of Pink Floyd-ish vibes. And it's a pretty strong, powerful song. Yeah, this is a lot more serious tone than a lot of their albums, because, they are a fairly goofy band. I mean, they're not necessarily like, Blink 182 or whatever, but, they can get pretty silly. This is not a silly album. Like I said, some of their best lyrics, I feel like a lot of the times Dave Grohl's lyrics aren't terrible, but they just kind of feel the melody. This has some genuinely good lyrics on it. So next album that I would kind of put in that trilogy of albums that I feel could more or less potentially change places, latest from Sufjan Stevens, Javelin. So this album actually went in with fairly low expectations, I'm not going to lie. Sufjan Stevens' last album, honestly, I didn't think was that great. It was kind of fairly straightforward pop album. Just going off the new tracks that were on this, obviously he went back to his more folky roots. But at the same time, there's not really a lot standing out to me about it, other than, a bit of a return to form. But this is an album that I definitely feel like is meant to be heard as an album, more as songs. I'm going to go and show you the CD, which I also got. I got it on CD as well, because I wanted to get this bonus disc. UK exclusive. My friend Brooklyn helped me with it. Getting this has 5 extra songs. Yeah, as I was saying, though, I definitely feel like this is meant to be heard more as a album. It's definitely kind of an experience. This is sort of like the arena rock of folk albums. I do have the vinyl size booklet. I'm going to show you the CD size just for ease. It's easier. But yeah, it's the type of album that I like to imagine, like, watching outdoors, kind of just as night is falling, fireworks in the background, because, it has a lot of, huger, more colorful sections that I really like to see some fireworks as I see it performed. Fortunately, it won't get performed anytime soon because of Sufjan's health problems. Yeah, has very kind of hippie vibes on it. Love is a very central theme of this album. yeah, really great, solid album from Sufjan. Again, like a lot of these other albums, I haven't put too much thought on how I would rank them in their individual discographies. Yeah, despite my initial low feelings, I do think this is on the upper end of things for Sufjan's albums. So, yeah. Alright, this holds a pretty steady spot at number 3 in my ranking. After this, I only have 2 more to show you. But as I said, Dennis Lyxzén of Refused and a bunch of other bands has had a pretty busy year. So here we have Vanitas Casino. Probably mispronounced that, at least partially. The best punk album of the last 20 years. And this is hand number 287 of 500. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, Dennis Lyxzén, primarily known for being a lead vocalist in his bands. This time he actually takes a supportive role. They have 3 different vocalists on here. Most of them are sang, I believe, by Sarah Almgren, who's also worked with Dennis on a few different projects, usually playing bass and background vocals. This time she's much more prominent on her vocals. Dennis Lyxzén is playing guitar this time. He's not really known much as an instrumentalist, but he does play guitar on this album, as well as background vocals on a lot of songs, and lead on a few. It's very rough, grungy, unpolished, really solid album, pretty noisy. So yeah, not a whole lot to say about it, but just a really solid punk album. Now we're into my top 2. These 2 could kind of potentially swap places, but this is how I'm feeling right now. From Philip Selway, we have Strange Dance. This is the drummer of Radiohead. Most of Radiohead's band members have some sort of side projects. Also got it with a signed print signed by Philip Selway himself, as well as the artist. I believe his name was Stuart Geddes. I believe I follow him on Instagram now. Number 32 of 300. Yeah, so this is kind of more art rock. Gives me a lot of David Bowie and Bjork vibes. I think this is my favorite of Philip Selway's 3 solo albums. I was originally thinking his second album was my favorite, but upon listening to both of them more, I do kind of like this one a little bit more. It's a little bit more orchestral, good mix of acoustic and electric elements to it. Just really gorgeous album. A lot of songs worth checking out. So yeah. And lastly, this is my favorite album of the year. Probably one. Well, I listen to a lot of obscure artists. I mean, Vanitas Casino is pretty obscure too, but one of the more obscure artists, Chris Staples, Cloud Souvenirs. So Chris Staples is a kind of indie, folkish singer-songwriter. This is probably one of his most personal albums, largely inspired by the death of his mother. And something in general that I like about Chris Staples is kind of how he mixes different instrumental elements. You know, he usually has a good mix of like acoustic and electric guitar and, you know, a lot of electronic elements, you know, synthesizers. I think he uses a fair amount of electric beats on his songs too. You know, interesting mixes like that, you know, different keyboards and stuff. This one's definitely his most synthesizer-heavy album. I'd say, for the most part, acoustic guitar is still kind of the central focus, but I'd go as far as calling a lot of these songs new wave. So yeah, very prominent, meaty synthesizers. Have very analog tone. I think he actually recorded this in like a kind of like synthesizer museum / studio. So that's pretty neat. So yeah, that is the studio albums that I picked up this year. So yeah, I will soon be doing a separate video for the kind of more odd releases. So keep an eye out for that.